We're in the final stages of making the bag, so it's time to put the tab on that we used to open and close the bag. And we're going to sew the flap on. I've used a cross stitch, but you can use any stitch you want really. I'm going to show you how to do a cross stitch so that you can have neat and tidy stitches on the inside and the out. But because you're going to see the stitches on the inside all the time when you open the bag as well. But also, it is entirely up to you how you stitch the bag. You can stitch this bag in any way you want. So I'm going to start on the second hole and leave some thread so that I can tie a knot in between the outside of the bag and the bag flap. And then I'm going to go like vertically, and I'm going to come out with the needle in the hole directly underneath the second hole. Can you see where I've done that? And yeah, so I'm incorporating the flap, but you don't have to do it this way. You can work out how to do this in your own way. All that I'm concerned about is that when it comes to knotting the ends together, both of my threads and not coming out of the same hole, because then there won't be any tension on them and then they'll pop undone. So then I'm going across, is that a transverse line, to the top corner, and I'm going to come out underneath that hole. And now I'm just going to do one row of the same transverse line. I'm not going to make the cross stitch and move on. I'm not going to make one complete cross stitch and move on. I'm just going to do all of the lines going in the one direction and then get to the other end and come back so that I can tie my knots once I've finished doing the cross stitch. Let me show you. So we'll start off with one full cross stitch. Now I'm going to come out of the hole directly underneath it. See? So that I end up with a neat and tidy row of stitches on the inside of the bag as well. So I'm always going across the transverse line, and then when I get to the inside of the bag, I am going vertically down and coming out of the hole underneath the one I've just done. So I've got a row of stitches that look like that. When I get to the end, now I'm going to make the cross stitches. Now all the cross stitches is going to happen, but hang on. Those stitches are quite loose, so before I do anything else, I'm just going to tighten them up. So I'm just using the needle to tug the thread a little bit, and I'm pulling that slack along from the one end of the stitches to the other, tightening up each stitch in turn. And then I'm going to be able to pull that thread, and just on the way back I will just make doubly sure that I am pulling enough on those stitches so that they're tight. And I'm just going to go back the other way now. So that I've got a whole row of cross stitches. So I'm heading back to where I began. And now to tie my knot. So I don't go all the way through with the final cross stitch. So I've got my two ends there. They both come out in between the seam. So I'm going to be able to tie my knot, and my knot is going to be invisible. So I'll just chop the thread to make it a little bit easier to tie. And I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. Tie a couple of knots. The thread is really sticky, so it shouldn't come undone. But make sure they're good tight knots. I'm tying 3. And then cut that. I leave about 1 centimetre of thread, but cut that quite short. And then I just tuck the thread in. Now, the thread is really squidgy, so you can, just by squeezing the knot, you can get rid of the bump. And your stitches are nice and tidy on the inside of the bag. Oops, you can see some thread there. So there's only one thing left to do, and that is to screw the tab on. So you've got 2 screws left, and the tab has 3 holes in it, and you're just gonna screw that on. Really super simple again. Push the screw through. Grab your screwdriver and just make sure that you screw everything on super duper tight.